Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today we continue our conversation on the 2-year review of the Tinubu administration. And my guest today is a notable Nigerian social media influencer and a former presidential spokesperson. I'd like to welcome back to Inside Sources, Mr. Reno Omokri. Reno, good to see you in that your traditional outfit.
Well, that's all I wear, you know, grow Naira, buy Niger. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's just get right to it. Alhaji Abubakar Atiku and Mr. Peter Obi, they were not very flattering in their review of the president's 2-year in office. How do you respond to that, Mr. Reno?
I'm going to take both of them on. I'll start with Peter Obi. First and foremost, Peter Obi was being very dishonest, and I can prove it to you. Peter Obi used to be chairman of a bank, had majority shares. Now he has about 10% shares in that bank. That bank, I'm not going to mention the name of the bank because I respect them and I don't want them to think that I'm going after them. But last year, the bank declared profit of 124.3 billion naira. This year, and they just released their figures about a month ago, they declared profit of 385.4 billion naira. So their profit has increased by more than 3, by a multiple of times 3, more than that. So I'm going to ask you a question now. If Peter Obi is saying that the economy is not growing, the president is not handling the economy very well, how come his own bank, where he has 10% shares, has increased in profitability by over 3 times? That's 300%, over 300%. It is not possible. His statement is contradictory to his finance situation. So he's about 64 years old. In his entire life, at no time has he been as profitable as in this last year under President Tinubu. And the reason why is because President Tinubu is handling the economy very well. We've seen that now we have a trade surplus of about $14 billion, actually $14.1 billion. It's never happened before. What's a trade surplus? When you are exporting more than you are importing. That's a good sign of the health of the economy. Peter Obi is not smarter than Fitch. Fitch is the #1 ratings agency in the whole world, bar none. Standard & Poor's and Knight Frank, they all come after Fitch. And Fitch has upgraded Nigeria's economy to a stable B. Don't forget, this is the same Fitch that downgraded the United States economy for the first time ever. They upgraded our economy. So what is Peter Obi talking about? Now, with due respect to Alhaji Waziri Atiku Abubakar, you know, this is a man I respect so much. So even though I disagree with what he said, I'm not going to address it because of the respect that I have for him. All I would say is that President Tinubu met a debt profile of $108 billion. Right now, our debt is $94 billion. So it has reduced by $14 billion. So there is no way you can call such a person someone who's addicted to debt, someone who's reducing our national debt. With all due respect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has exceeded the expectations of most reasonable Nigerians. Why do I say so? He's reduced our debt. He's increased our trade surplus. In fact, we didn't even have a trade surplus before. He's increased it. If you are an investor, the All Shares Index, they've achieved 2 records under President Bola Tinubu. And this man came in, Nigeria was the #1 petrol importer in Africa. Right now, we are not. South Africa has now overtaken us. We are now instead the #1 petrol exporter in West Africa. So anybody saying that this man has not done well is just being political and they are not being truthful.
Very, you know, as usual, Reno, you know, you always come in with a lot of hard facts. But let's take it, you know, away from, you know, Mr. Peter Obi and Atiku. There are people that are doing well, just like you've shown that Peter Obi's bank is doing well. But do you think that the average Nigerian, the mass of our people who are still grilling under the economic pains, would you say that they are doing well? Won't you concede, you know, like the administration has done, that there is still quite a bit of suffering in the land because of some of those reforms, which many of us agree are an imperative, you've got to do them, but there is still a lot of suffering in the land. Reno?
There is still a lot of suffering in the land. Nigeria is not a rich country. So if you have a father that is not rich and you're suffering, You can't be complaining and saying, well, I'm suffering, I'm suffering. No, your father is not rich. Nigeria is an oil-poor country. The reason why the Naira is now 1,560 to the dollar is not because President Bola Tinubu is a terrible president. No, it's because he started floating the Naira and stopped subsidizing the Naira. A lot of people who are ignorant, like Peter Obi, have cited the figure. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, he was saying when the Naira was 165 Naira to a dollar, people protested. Why are they not protesting now? I was presidential spokesman when the Naira was 165 Naira to a dollar. At that point in time, the Naira was being subsidized. Under Muhammadu Buhari, the Naira was being subsidized. So what you were seeing as a Nigerian wasn't the actual value of the Naira. The federal government of Nigeria was spending $1.5 billion every month to subsidize Naira. Please assume I'm a liar and go and fact check me. $1.5 billion every month subsidizing the Naira. And this was not money that we had. This was money that we were borrowing. Now, we weren't spending 1.5 billion every month on healthcare, on education, on roads. We were spending it subsidizing the Naira. And you know what, Laolu, I will stun you today. Do you know what Nigerians were using that money to do, the cheap dollars? Do you know what we're using it to do?
Go ahead, Reno.
We were spending $200 million annually on importing human hair for our women to wear, human hair. We were spending $75 million on French champagne. We were spending 25 million pounds on Scotch whiskey. So if we were subsidizing the Naira and then our people were spending it on transferring technology, buying heavy equipment, things that will make the economy better, it would even make sense to keep on subsidizing the Naira. But look at how we were pissing away the cheap dollars on very silly things. So the reason why we now have a trade surplus is because President Bola Tinubu has done what worked in Vietnam. He has floated the Naira and made imports so expensive that Nigerians have no other choice than to buy made in Nigeria. And look at me, everything I am wearing from head to toe is made in Nigeria. And that's how we are going to grow our economy.
Okay. Now, would you suggest, since, it's very clear that you have, these views about the administration and, you do a good job in trying to articulate it as best as you could. But will you also suggest to the administration, or will you agree that this is no time for the administration or its officials to show any kind of ostentation? And we've seen quite a bit of it, Reno. What's your view on that? So you make this analysis, but we see the administration doing some rather ostentatious things, buying a new jet, even though it's refurbished, building the vice president's, house, 23 billion.
Let me step in there.
Please go ahead.
The Tinubu administration did not build the vice president's house. That project was started under our administration. Please fact check me. It was started under our
there's no doubt about that.
Continued.
There's no doubt about that.
No, but
the point is that...
Let me land.
Okay, all right.
But allow me land.
Please go ahead.
Please allow me land. It was started by our administration, continued by the Buhari administration. Now, after the project had gone 95% ahead, and then the Bola Tinubu administration comes, and you say that they should now stop the 5%, then it is actually not going to be cost efficient. So that means you've wasted the 95%. So let's put things into perspective. You talked about the presidential jet. It is actually more expensive on a dollar cost averaging basis for the president to fly commercial. It's actually more expensive. That jet, you said the president bought a new jet. It's not a new jet. It's not a second-hand jet. It's a third-hand jet. Now, let's put it in perspective. The United States just commissioned a $2 billion presidential jet, Air Force One, $2 billion. The presidential jet that the Bola Tinubu administration bought is less than 1% of that cost. So look at that now. No, sorry, not less than 1%. Sorry, I think it's about 100 and something million. So that would be like maybe probably about 10% of that, or less than 10%. That's about 5% of that. So if you put it into perspective, you've got to be very careful about making these kinds of sweeping statements that these are ostentatious things, because you're dealing with a man who is a first-class accountant. He graduated with a first class, or what they call in the United States, cum laude. So he makes decisions based on dollar cost averaging. And dollar cost averaging, for those who don't know, is that you put the various alternatives to a dollar cost, and then you go with the least expensive. And that's what he's done with the presidential jet. But if you recall, 2 weeks ago, this president launched what they call the Nigeria First policy. So that means that every government ministry, department, and agency must buy a made-in-Nigeria product where it's available rather than a foreign product. So we are seeing that the president is actually keeping to his words. Not only that, last year he issued out a policy and said from henceforth the president can only travel with, I think it was about 9 people, and then the vice president can only travel with a certain amount of people, and ministers can only travel with 2 people. This has not been done before in Nigeria, even under Muhammadu Buhari. So if you look at what's happening, I think the president is doing well in that regard.
Oh, well, you know, it is true that you could argue for the cost effectiveness of some of these things. But my view, Reno, and then you will comment and then we move along, is that, yes, you know, the new vice president residence has been built for a long, has been ongoing, you know, but I didn't see anything that compels the urgency of completing it. You know, you could, and there was additional at least 7 billion naira more that was spent at that time to finish it. So I was thinking that, okay, well, to show that we don't want to show to Nigerians as if we are not sensitive, you could leave it, which was what Buhari did. Also, so that you can comment on everything together, the president promised that there was going to be a consolidation of MDAs, you know, set up a panel that was chaired by the SGF. Now, a year has passed. We don't have any report whether that has happened or, as a matter of fact, it hasn't happened because we do know it hasn't happened. And then, on the issue of the travel costs, you are right. The presidential spokespeople announced that they are going to do that cost, and people applauded it. But up to now, nobody has told us, Reno, that, okay, this is how much has been saved from these travel costs. Your comments?
Well, I think first, I'll take the last issue first. I don't think that they even have to tell people how much has been saved, because what you can do as a Nigerian citizen, you got to understand that the 2025 Appropriation Act is a public document. You can read it. And in that Appropriation Act, you can actually look at the budget for traveling for the president and the vice president and compare it to previous budgets, not just last year's budget, compared to the budgets under Muhammadu Buhari, under President Goodluck Jonathan, under President Yar'Adua, and under President Obasanjo. I'm going to give you an example. President Obasanjo visited Kano. And if you doubt me, I can actually show you the news headlines. He visited Kano, I believe that was in 2001. And in just 4 hours that he spent in Kano, the Kano state government spent 10 million naira. This was in 2001 when the naira was, I think it was about 120 naira to $1 for 4 hours. So being a president and running a presidential system is very expensive. But if you now compare what this president is spending with what his predecessors have spent, you're going to see that, yes, this president has reduced costs. It's very easy to say, okay, he's spending XYZ amount and that one spent XYZ amount, but you've got to factor in the fact that the naira has been devalued because it has been floated. So take that in. Now, we're going back to the other issue of the presidential jet. The presidential jet, like I told you, this is a foregone issue. It is, in terms of dollar cost averaging, the most economic thing to do. On the vice president's residence, well, I'll tell you the truth. If I'm president of Nigeria and my predecessors have spent about 95% of the cost, and then I come in and they say, okay, well, all that's left is about 5% of the cost. I don't think that is going to be economically sound, economically prudent of me to say, abandon the project. This is a project that belongs to the federal government of Nigeria. It doesn't belong to President Bola Tinubu or Vice President Kashim Shettima. So at the end of the day, the project has, I mean, they've gone ahead. If it was at the initial stage, the conceptual stage, I do not think that a president like Bola Tinubu would have agreed to that kind of expenditure. But after he spent 95%, come on, you say, okay, because you don't want to spend 5% and you abandon the project, that is not sound economics.
All right, so let's move along to other things, Reno. So okay. If you were to advise the president, you know, for whom you have, you know, been speaking very highly, what would you ask him to do to bring some succor to the masses of the Nigerian people that are suffering? Reno, what will you say to him on how to deal with the poverty, the levels of poverty that we are experiencing in this country?
I think he's doing the right things. Already, we've seen that he's achieved local government autonomy. A lot of the sufferings that the masses are having is because funds that are meant for the masses are being trapped somewhere between the state government and the local government. The state governments, they just seize these funds. Now, in achieving local government autonomy, we've seen that funds are going to be going direct to the local governments. Now, there's some hitches here and there. The governors are resisting. By the time that happens, you're going to see a lot of trickle-down effect. Now, another thing that has to be done is this. We're now seeing that for the first time, probably in history, but maybe they've done it before, I'm not aware, but we're seeing that the VAT figures for the states are being published. Now, what's that? Why is that good? It's going to engender competition. A lot of people are seeing that, first and foremost, Lagos in this last quarter generated more than the entire 36 states, the rest of the 36 states, or rather 35 states combined together. So when people see that, then this is what federalism is all about. It's going to make them more competitive because these figures are being made open, they're being made transparent. And then when you have a situation where you have the Tax Reforms Act, which has been passed, and then people are now seeing that the states are going to be getting more from their VAT, is going to make them work hard. A lot of people say, oh, well, a state like Lagos is making a lot of money because they have the ports. What about a state like Oyo? Oyo State is generating 3 times the VAT revenue for the federal government, for the federation pool, than the entire states, the entire 5 states of the Southeast. So if you take the states of the Southeast together, put all that they're contributing and multiply it by 2, that's what Oyo State is contributing. And how is Oyo able to do that? Oyo is further away from any port than the Southeast states. The Southeast states, they are closer to One Port. One is a fully operational port. In terms of investment, the federal government has invested more money at One than at the Lagos port. The most up-to-date Lagos port is actually not even a federal government port. It's the Lekki Free Trade Zone, which was built by Lagos State. So if Oyo State, that is so far away, it is the furthest southern state from a port, can make so much money, then there is no reason why other states cannot make money. So this local government autonomy and then the tax reforms bill are going to engender competition. And when there's competition, then you're going to see revenues increase. Already, we've seen that each state under Bola Tinubu, their revenue has increased, their internal generated revenue has also increased, and their indebtedness has reduced rather. So the president is doing the right things to spur revenue and growth in Nigeria.
All right, let's move along to political issues. There's quite a bit of buzz, about what opposition politicians are doing. And your former principal, whom you still have a lot of respect for, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, seems to be the arrowhead of the opposition. Do you have, and then of course, your good friend too, Mr. Peter Obi is involved, Hel Rufai is involved, and, quite a few other people. And they're saying that, look, we're going to do what APC did in 2014, 2015. We're going to come together and bring, our one solid front against the president in 2027. Reno, what do you think is going to happen in 2027 with all of this buzz?
The reason why Peter Obi was able to command some kind of following in 2023 is because you had 3 major Muslim candidates, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, and Alhaji Rabi Musa Kwankwaso. And a lot of Christians and Southerners felt that the election was taking a religious tone. And so they backed Peter Obi. And they backed him for president. Now, what we're seeing with the coalition is that Peter Obi has been offered a vice presidential slot, and that there might be just one-term presidency going to the north. That's their configuration. Now, I'm telling you, if Peter Obi accepts that, he's not going to get the kind of support that he got in 2023. First and foremost, the northern Christians, the northern minorities, what we call the Kwajaja axis, sometimes also called Kwararafa axis, which begins from Zulu in Kebbi State all the way to Gembu in Taraba State. They're not going to be in support of him. They're not going to support him. Why? Look, these people were dying on a daily basis under Muhammadu Buhari. A lot of these people, the first time they've been able to return to their villages is when Bola Tinubu became president and appointed Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who is our best national security ever, if you look at the achievements that he has garnered. So these people are not going to now vote for somebody who might make things go back. So Peter Obi is just going to lose that. Now, if you talk about Malam Nasir El-Rufai, now Malam Nasir El-Rufai was an incumbent governor. He was not able to deliver his own state. He lost almost all of the House of Representatives seats to the PDP. He lost. I think he lost. I think in total there were about 16, and I think maybe the Labour Party got 2, and I think he got 1 for his son, and then the rest went to the People's Democratic Party. So he lost his states at the House of Representative level. At the Senate level, he lost his states. You know, all of the seats in the state, he lost them to the People's Democratic Party. So if as an incumbent governor, he was not able to win his state at the presidential level, and at the gubernatorial level, he almost lost his state because the candidate of the APC won by 11,000 votes. And this is as an incumbent. So if he performs so woefully as an incumbent, now that he's out of power, and then his governor is not in good terms with him, as a matter of fact, the Kaduna State House of Assembly has indicted him for fraud and for all manner of dishonest practices. And then just last week, a court, I think they gave an order of 900 million, awarded damages of 900 million against him. The man has too many things he's contending with, that he's not, in fact, he's just going to be a spent force. He's not going to be able to deliver anything to the coalition. As for Waziri Atiku Abubakar, because of my previous relationship with him, I'm not going to analyze him. I will respect him. This is a man who, I mean, we did not have any quarrel. I spoke to him and I told him, look, I'm going to be supporting Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu because I believe that the things that we said we were going to do during the election, during the campaigns, the man is doing them, and he's doing them well, just as good as we would have done them. So because of that, I'm going to support him. So there was no acrimony between myself and Waziri Atiku Abubakar, and the man has been good to me. May God not forgive me if I turn around and I bite a finger that has once been very good to me. So I'm not going to analyze him. But this coalition, mark my words, it will fail. In 2014, when the APC came about, you had state governors. You had behemoths in the south and in the north. You had Muhammadu Buhari, the northern behemoth, and you had Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the southern behemoth, coming together with state governors. And then also they took a bunch of governors from the PDP and they formed the new PDP, which came together. You're not seeing this here. As a matter of fact, what you're seeing is the reverse. APC governors are with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then PDP governors have come out to say they are also with him. I mean, I'm sure you've read that. They held meetings, they said, look, they are with him. PDP governors in the southeast, PDP governors in the north, PDP governors in other parts of Nigeria. So what we are seeing right now is just a shadow of what happened in 2014, and that coalition is going to fall up.
So what about if, in the unlikely instance, which is what some of the obedient people have been saying behind the scene, that Atiku concedes to have Peter Obi at the head of the ticket? What do you think about that?
It's not going to happen. I know that for a fact, that Waziri Atiku Abubakar is not going to concede. I mean, these obedience, they tend to be delusional. They tend to believe their wishes. You know, I mean, to a large extent, you know, it's very, very easy to cajole them to believe things that ordinarily they would not have believed if they were using their senses. So, I mean, if you look at a lot of them believing all these fantastical stories about Traore in Burkina Faso, which are obviously lies, in the fact that the Naira has been devalued because it has been floated. So take that in. Now we're going back to the other issue of the presidential jet. The presidential jet, like I told you, this is a foregone issue.